My friends, if you are looking for somebody to help you with your finances, I cannot recommend Molly Morris from M3 Virtual Accounting enough. You can check her out and get a free consultation. This is how I got involved with her, was we chatted on video for a little while, and I told her what I was looking for, and she decided whether or not she could help me out. And it was just a really good way to get to know what it is that she does. So if you're interested, but you're not really sure what you need or not really ready to commit, go to m3virtualaccounting.com and set up a free consult with Molly today.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host switcheroo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV. Today we are covering A Feast for Crows, chapters 8 and 9, Jaime and Brienne. In these chapters, Jaime is feeling deep guilt over Tyrion's involvement with his dad's death, but not exactly grief. And Brienne is road tripping. She's just road tripping around and then runs into somebody that we know. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now, kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right, everybody. I am recording this on a different platform today, so hopefully we do not have the issue that we had with the last episode. But
here's hoping.
We also actually had an episode to post, which was better than I expected, so that's something.
Mm-hmm.
So these chapters, not a lot of plot movement forward, but
but they were very long.
People are feeling. Yeah, Brienne's especially felt like, did we need?
It didn't. No, they were both quite long.
Yeah,
with not a lot of payoff, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna hold anybody accountable for that. I'm gonna allow it. But yes,
makes me even more glad
long.
that we were able to have a recording for the last episodes, because those two chapters were so good.
Yeah.
So if we lost that and then we had this week, not that they're bad chapters, they're just not. They're also two POVs we've been in before.
Mm-hmm.
So, the novelty of starting off with several different people whose heads we have not been in yet, it's naturally going to wear off at some point, and I think it's beginning. Yeah.
Especially when the anticipation of all the people that are yet to still show themselves in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's coming. There's a certain amount of every time it's a new chapter, I'm just like, oh, I wonder who it'll be. And no shade to Jaime and Brienne, but I was just like, oh, but I've already been there. I was just in those.
Yep.
But
I get it.
It's fine. It was Jaime's was interesting because it is taking place with a little of the overlap from Cersei's, but then moving into the next day or two.
Yeah.
So it was that was kind of cool to be in the same moment for a minute, but just in his POV. Jaime. Oh, Jaime. What are we going to do?
Woman. Oh, woman.
What are we going to do with Jaime Lannister, you guys? I don't know. He, this is a man that has made some choices, and he seems as befuddled by his choices as the rest of us are. We talked a lot in the Cersei chapter last week about the sort of whiplash that you get in her POV.
Mm-hmm.
And I experienced a little something similar in this POV for Jaime, in the way that he regards himself and the choices he's made and the actions that he's taken.
Mm.
He swings from moments of like defiance and belligerence to moments of like immense guilt and self-loathing. He is in this chapter internally holding himself to account for his father's death.
Yes.
But then has a moment where he tries to say those words out loud and chokes on them to a dead man. He can't even say them out loud to a dead man. And then listening to Jaime, because I think we talked about it in the last chapter. I don't know if I made a comment about it or not. But having Jaime be the person in charge of investigating what happened to Tywin, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that's
I think we talked about that in the Cersei chapter when she first discovers that her father has been murdered. But then to come around to a Jaime POV where he is actively like sending people to search for the treacherous traitors and find the imp and who was behind this plot. And him knowing the whole time, oh, everybody, I'm sending everybody out to look for me.
Yeah, it's a wild moment when he finds out like Cersei sent some of his men to kill a guy, and he gets real mad about it. And I'm like, look, I don't disagree with the principle of what you're saying, which is check with me before you do shit like that. But also, I feel like you feel more mad about this because you know it's kind of your fault.
Yeah, because now he feels guilty for these two, because he's like, those guys weren't hurting anybody. It was not even their fault. They were asleep. Varys drugged them. So they got killed for no reason. They didn't do anything wrong. They were also victims of this escape heist.
Yep.
But he can't say any of that.
He sure can't.
So he has to try to save face by just being like, well, you guys shouldn't have done it without my permission. You know, and it's just it's weak sauce. it just is.
And there's also the element in that scene, which we're jumping all over the place, but we're gonna, so just be ready for that, guys. That he is suspicious that Osmond Kettleblack has been fucking Cersei, so he's extra not here for Osmond's shit.
That the Tyrion's words are ringing throughout his head this entire POV. Yeah, and there's especially that one refrain of the, you know, she's fucking the Kettleblacks and Lancel and probably even Moonboy. You know, keeps like, you know, circling around in his head. It can't like shake it. Jaime, poor thing. There's a minute where he's been standing vigil, which turns out this is like a ritual or tradition or whatever. It's supposed to be 7 days and 7 nights.
Literally kill me. Like, what? No.
I just like, who is doing this?
And I will simply respectfully decline.
You know, and it turns out someone says to him, like, no one could do this. No man can do it for 7 days and 7 nights, which to me suggests that it's understood that this vigil is sort of ceremonial. Right. But it's not expected that a single man is going to do the 7 days and 7 nights. Like, that's just not how it happens in the real world. You know, there's like a changing of the guard that happens. But Jaime will not allow anyone to come and take his place. Loras even offers, like, let me stand for you tonight. You come back in the morning. And Jaime is like, he's not your father to Loras. I can't let you come stand here because he wasn't your father. But internally, his thought is, you didn't kill him, I did. So Jaime's vigil is not just out of respect of that's my father that was killed and it's laying there. It's guilt. Yeah. You know? He's
trying to do a penance kind of. And he also thinks Cersei would hate that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I always forget, like, even when he feels like he's sort of distancing himself from her, what her opinion is on things is just gonna be part of every consideration he makes.
Yeah.
And that actually makes sense to me. You know, even if somebody isn't part of your life anymore, if they made enough of a fundamental impression on you, you're always gonna like think about what their opinion would be on whatever the issue at hand happens to be.
Yep. Even if you try to tell yourself that you don't even necessarily respect their opinion anymore, you know, it's still there. Yeah. That voice is still in your head, and would they approve of this thing? You know, how would they take it? And as much as he's right now distant from Cersei. Like she's still how he values anything, how he evaluates anything.
Yeah.
It's like through her lens. So he's we get this bit at the beginning, which is kind of going over that night that Tyrion is, escapes, and he's talking about having waited for Varys and how he attacks him and forces him into this plot of rescuing Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
Which Jaime threatens him. If you don't take care of this, if Tyrion dies, you're going to die like right behind him. So I have a question.
Okay.
Even at knife point, from a one-handed Jaime Lannister, Varys doesn't do this simply because he was threatened and forced to do it from Jaime. I feel like Varys always has, not that Jaime is someone to be trifled with, or that Varys would not have a healthy respect for how dangerous Jaime could be.
Mm-hmm.
But Varys doesn't strike me as the type to really do a thing because he was threatened in this manner.
So what you're saying is this was all part of his game.
If Varys agreeing to do this is because it serves his agenda in some way.
Gotcha.
Because
what's his agenda?
Well, that's the next thing, because what we find out, Varys doesn't just help Tyrion escape; he also bounces, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know from the beginning, at least, and I'm trying not to take in too much of what the show ended up doing with Varys, trying not to let that color me too much, but he stated more than once, especially when he was dealing with Ned, how ultimately Varys's interests lie in the realm as a whole.
Sure.
That he is not just loyal to a particular family or house or even king, but to the realm. So I guess this must in some way, having Tyrion stay alive, Varys has decided that Tyrion has something still to offer, the realm in some way. He's still, I don't know if valuable is the right word, but there's something, I guess, about Tyrion that Varys feels like could be useful. I don't know. I don't have all the pieces put together yet. I just wouldn't know when I was reading this sort of ambush of Jaime and he's threatening Varys with the knife, and even though it's violent and it's scary, it just doesn't strike me that Varys responds to that, without having a way to protect himself and make sure that what he needs to happen happens. You know what I mean?
I definitely get what you mean. Yeah.
So I'm still trying to put the pieces together.
He didn't have a whole lot of time to set it up.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have to partially maybe be coincidence as well, unless you think he had been going to do this anyway.
See, and I start to wonder about that,
Mm-hmm.
I start to wonder, because let me see. I'm trying to see if we find out exactly how much time there is between Jaime sort of assaulting him.
Yeah.
And when Tyrion actually escapes. And I don't know if we get an actual timeline on that. But it definitely feels like it happened very, very quickly.
Yeah, it felt like it was basically take me there now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that made me think about Varys's intentions and exactly how, because Jaime never stops to think for a second, really, what else Varys may have been wanting to do. He threatens him. Varys does what he demands, and Jaime seems to be Well, yeah, of course, that's what I asked you to do. And that part is done. But he seems, and Jaime is wondering like where Varys is hiding now. And I feel like the only thing he didn't expect was for Varys to also disappear.
That's an interesting point too. Yeah.
Like, I think he thought that Varys was just going to, like, I don't know, open up the gates or bribe whoever needed to be bribed or whatever,
Right.
And then the next day they would all be there together, like, oh my God, I can't believe Tyrion escaped. This is crazy, But anyway, so that just kind of struck me too. So I just wanted to mention that. And then Jaime had this crazy thought where he's like, well, maybe Varys didn't disappear. Maybe he's not hiding. Maybe Tyrion just killed him too.
Yeah, he starts to kind of go down this road a little bit with like, well, who knows what Tyrion's capable of after all? Because, and you hate to see it. I don't like for him to be having these sorts of opinions on his brother. But I also, Tyrion, you did say that you killed his son. So
you did. Yep. Your last words were, you spit out to your brother a couple of really harsh things and then kind of turned your back on him. And Jaime, I don't know. I don't know if he believes Tyrion when Tyrion says, I killed your son. But it's
never really like dwelled on. He's a much more caught up in if Cersei is fucking these guys than he is on whether Tyrion killed Joffrey.
Of all the things that are like ringing in his ears, the shit about Cersei is like constant. There's like one time where he thinks about Tyrion claiming to have killed Joffrey, and that was it. He only thinks of it one time.
Yeah, he's got his priorities. That is for sure.
So this whole thing, we kind of get like not quite a rehash, but like a day 2 of Tywin laying in state, people coming to visit his body. And now all I could think about reading this chapter was the theory that some readers have where that Tywin was poisoned. Because this situation, this body that's lying in state right now, this is no good. This is no good. No one should be coming to view this body. His eyes are sunken, almost rotted away. This thing they keep doing with the smile is so creepy. I think it's Maester Pycelle who somebody tells Jaime that it's not a smile. It's because the skin is drying out. The flesh is drying out. He's got like an open wound that's oozing on his face, on his cheek, and then through all his very fancy mail that they have him lying in, he's just oozing. It is a fucking horror show. And I don't know why we are all coming to see him. We saw him yesterday. That is enough. That is fine. We do not need to. And if this is supposed to go on for 7 fucking days, he is going to be just a pile of goo. With a gold sword laying in it, like a puddle. Like, who wants to come see that? My hope for the
Why'd you have to do that? I feel it on my skin. I don't like it.
My hope for the realm is that they just put the kibosh on this wake and call it a day. It don't
Cersei's pretty insistent. 7 days, you said.
Listen, she drags Tommen in, and Tommen is all of us. Before Tommen come in, because Cersei and Tommen come in last, we watch like some other nobles come in. There's a bit about how Marjorie comes in and she has all these flowers, and she discreetly keeps one up to her nose because the smell is so bad, and then all of her ladies follow suit. This is just a bad scene, and she drags poor Tommen up. Tommen sees that corpse and is like, I really would rather not. And I heard I was king, so really my word should stay in. Like, why isn't anybody listening to me? And she yanks that poor baby down, and he's basically hysterical.
Yeah.
And then ends up throwing up, because that is the appropriate thing to do when you are all like that close up on a rotting body.
Yeah.
And then he takes his little legs and goes running out.
I swear to God. Oh, Tommen.
Oh, and so
Poor baby.
Jaime goes to follow and console him because Cersei doesn't, at least not right away. She ends up showing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole bit was just so hard to read and to think about. Poor Tommen. And he's talking to Jaime about, like, I wasn't scared. I was just sick, you know?
Yeah.
And he starts to talk about Joffrey, and he calls him Joffrey, and that's when Cersei is there. His name was Joffrey.
Fucking
Ma'am.
Not only is that, like, but the reason his name comes up is because Jaime tells him sometimes you have to go away inside so that you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I used to go away inside when Joffrey.
Right.
What the fuck was Joffrey doing to his brother?
He was doing something so despicable that this little boy had to learn to disassociate.
Yep.
And here she comes defending him again, taking it out on Tommen again, because Tommen's not Joffrey. And she just, I don't know. And it's the kind of thing too where, like, say Joffrey doesn't die and he just grows into, like, the horrendous person we all know he would have become.
Mm-hmm.
Does Cersei's opinion of him ever change?
No.
Or does she just see him blindly throughout everything?
Yes. And here's why. Here's my thing. Okay. So I have had this argument a number of times. And if I'm not mistaken, this is from the jump of covering these books with Brendan. But a lot of people try and be like, Cersei has her faults, but she loves her children. She does not love her children. Come on, kids. She sees them as an extension of herself. And so she cares about them in as much as she cares about her own ego.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't care about them as individual people. She doesn't see them for who they are. She just wants to keep her power and reputation and use them to do it. And when they don't cooperate, in her, like, estimation, Joffrey was doing his job on that front.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in power and he was vicious, and that's the way she feels like things should be run. But Tommen doesn't do that. And because he doesn't accomplish what she wants him to, he isn't worth anything to her.
Mm-hmm.
You could just see by the way she, like, screams at him here. She only, like, gets control of herself when Jaime says that there's one of the Tyrells is coming.
Mm-hmm. She loves her children the way Tywin loved his children, it seems.
Ooh, that's an indictment.
I mean, and to be honest, like, well, no, I'm not. I'll take it back. Probably, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say she never had a chance, because you do. People get to make choices,
mm-hmm.
you know. But it's not surprising, is a better way to say it, that this is how she views her children, because this is how her father viewed his children. You know, you are just an extension of me. Tywin was always going on about how he's not going to let his children embarrass him and embarrass the family, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's like Cersei is trying to, it's just another piece that she's trying to model after, because she thinks that's what makes a strong, powerful person, a leader, a ruler. She thinks those are the qualities that you have to have.
Mm-hmm.
So this might be I might be giving her a little too much grace, but that's just how I do. It's almost like she's trying to convince herself that this is the way you're supposed to be with your children. Like, this is the right way to raise your children, because this is the way her father raised his children. And it's just another attempt on her part to pretend to be him, you know?
That's an interesting thought.
But
I don't really agree, because it feels to me like she is dead certain. Like, she's not trying to convince herself of anything. She feels like this is one of the few things that she is consistent about.
Yeah. I will say, I remember conversations, especially the first 1 or 2 seasons of a television show, there was a lot of conversation about how the Cersei character had been softened.
Yeah.
And because the show often had her saying things like, everything I do is for my children. I would never let anybody hurt my children, so that she was almost a sympathetic character, because you would just look at her and be like, well, this is a woman. It's just going to she just don't play about hers,
Yeah.
Book Cersei, I don't recall her saying much of anything along those lines ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the whole theory regarding how she would ever see Joffrey, there are so many people that are in situations like this with children who are horror shows and they never see it. You managed to create such a convincing series of explanations and excuses that it becomes bulletproof, and you start to believe your own bullshit that you're telling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think no matter what happens to him and how much it's very exposed and public that he is a sadist and a rapist, probably, all of this would just be well, it's because of these damn women, these women who do this to him and, show up and put things in his head, or it's because of his hand who gave him bad advice on set. It would literally never, ever be his fault.
Yeah. I think that's fairly common too. I've obviously, I am not a parent, but I imagine the difficulty in facing the reality that the person that you brought into this world has turned out to be just fucking awful,
Mm-hmm.
and how hard that must be. I don't spend a lot of time digging into it in real life, but we have all of these horrendous things that are happening in this country, especially around gun violence and mass shootings and shit like that. And the parents, who have to sit with the fact that the child that they brought into the world, that they raised, hopefully that they loved, has then turned around and done this despicable thing. And you're left with well, how do you really face that, and what does facing that really look like? So yeah, I don't know. I think I tend to agree that if Joffrey is allowed to live and just grows into being a more and more terrible person, the only thing that interests me, not the only thing that interests me, but the only thing that kind of puts a little bit of a flag on the play with that theory is Joffrey as a kid was already wildly disrespectful to his mother,
mm-hmm.
bordering on the abusive. As he gets older, grows in power, and that relationship deteriorates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that change Cersei's view of him?
So her treatment at his hands.
Yeah. Once he starts really, being fuck you, right to your face, fuck you, mom, then
you're cool.
Does that change? Because if there's one thing Cersei's going to do, it's going to be just her opinion based on how she is being treated.
That's fucking true.
So
I wonder what that would have to look like. And it's, we say this, but think about all the people who they don't care about certain topics until it happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you expect that their vision will be expanded, but they literally only care about their situation still.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't apply that to the greater picture. So even if that were to happen, I bet Cersei just deals with the way he's treating her and does not see that as part of a pattern.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right on that. Excuse me, I had to take a sip of tea.
How dare you eat any liquids or foods?
I made myself an egg sandwich for late breakfast.
Yeah.
It was so good, you guys.
You sound like that was an experience, that egg sandwich. What you put on it? You got to tell me everything about your egg sandwich.
No, it was just a little humble egg sandwich with a little slice of cheese. It wasn't fancy.
Was it scrambled egg? Fried egg?
Nope, I fried it.
I love a fried egg.
I do love a fried egg too.
Was it on toast or it was English muffin?
It was on toast. And
just a fried egg
on toast.
Toast.
And it was
piece
so
of cheese.
Good. A little cheese, a little American cheese, nothing fancy.
Oh, American cheese.
Basic. We always have American cheese in the house.
I currently have American cheese in the house because I bought, but like without really thinking it through, one of those cases from Sam's that has like 2,000 in it, and that shit does not go bad for like 6 months. So.
Oh, you have like this is the sliced cheese from the deli.
Oh, you've got good American cheese.
Yeah, we always we don't get the the singles. The
I've got the Kraft, yeah.
Nah.
Where it doesn't hold its shape unless plastic is forcing it into place.
One thing we will do in this house is treat ourselves to some deli cheese, which that shit is expensive as fuck for just some cheese. Just to be coming out of a cow. It's really overestimating its value, if you ask me.
It's like the combo of the price for me, and then having to wait in line for the deli, which I just hate. I fucking hate deli lines. It's a whole thing. Just don't. Let me just type it in somewhere, and you can get to it at your leisure, and I can just come pick it up like a pickup order at Starbucks. I don't want to interact with anybody. I don't want to wait here, wasting my grocery grabbing time. Picking
your little number. Watching a little clock, make sure your number rolls up.
Trying to estimate how long you've got. Can I go and get some bread and stuff while I'm waiting? Or is somebody going to just order like one thing? And then you're like, no, it's fine. I'll just wait. And then somebody shows up and they need enough to make like 40 heroes for their graduation party. And you just, I hate it.
I will say that for my deli puts out certain things already pre-sliced and pre-wrapped.
That's nice. Yeah.
So
the big sellers.
So we can go to the deli counter and grab a thing of already pre-sliced cheese. It's already wrapped up and ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
I don't know how my egg sandwich came up, y'all. But
you needed to take a sip of iced tea.
Oh yeah,
I said something about how dare you. We really need medication.
More
of it.
Need more medication.
Yeah, this is really something. This is like I took a test on like, do you have ADD? And they responded with, this sounds just like anxiety. And I'm, well,
really?
Yeah. And they were like, it doesn't sound like you have problems with focus or blah blah blah. And I'm like, did you read what and then I just wanted to be like, I'm gonna send you a fucking podcast episode, like. I don't know what else to tell you, but I feel like you listen to what should have been 45 minutes turn into an hour and 45 minutes. And most of that is not actually relevant. And you're going to understand a little bit better. Listen to us get off on a tangent and then me burst into song randomly just because lyrics kind of match. I mean, okay. Whatever.
I want to take that test if it's free. I want you to send me the link. It's not
free.
Oh, it's not?
It was expensive and it took me 2 full days because it was like several hours. Yeah.
Oh, and they came back with no, they don't think you have it.
It came back with like, no, it sounds like just anxiety, but they were asking me, have you been experiencing XYZ in the last 30 days? And I have the fucking dogs. Yes, I have experienced this in the last 30 days. So it didn't feel like they were, and they asked like, there was a section where you could type in mitigating circumstances or anything specific that you wanted them to know. And I let them know about that. And it did not feel like they took that into account at all. Not to say that I don't also have anxiety because probably a medley, but I don't think that's all that's happening.
Did you just say probably a medley?
Yeah. A little vegetable medley on the side. You got a little zucchini.
You got a little anxiety
cauliflower. Yep. Fucking gross. Those vegetable medleys that you get in like a cafeteria. They always put like the nastiest combos of things.
Like lima beans.
Yep.
And
slimy carrots.
Oh my God. All right. Let's
slimy on the outside, hard on the inside somehow. Like, I don't even know how you do that, but. But anyway, yes, it was not free. And they do have a thing though, where you can like get in touch, and I am going to do that and just be like, look, I need to argue my case in person because clearly y'all don't read.
I don't think you got the full picture.
I don't. Maybe once you talk to me and I take 40 minutes to get to the point of why I'm contacting you, then you'll have suffered enough to get it. Anyway.
But so all of that to say, we were talking about Cersei and her ability to see Joffrey for what he truly was. And I think we have both decided that was probably never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because she would have to admit I think in order to see who he really was, then would reflect back on her to see who she truly is. And that was hard to say.
You slipped and slid all over that like it was icy.
They were icy. They were icy. But she doesn't have no interest in that. You know, she doesn't want to see who she really is.
And that's what I mean about them just being an extension of her ego.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, it's just not about them. Parents who really love their children, the energy is so much more focused on what is best for them. What do you understand about what's important to them, and how can you make that work with whatever you're trying to accomplish? She doesn't give a shit. It's not about that.
Yeah, not at all. And Jaime is here on the outskirts of these children that he's helped, bring into the world, but doesn't have an opportunity to raise. When she shows up later to plead her case for trying to get him to agree to be her hand, and he throws that back in her face,
Yeah.
These aren't my children. These are Robert's kids. You saw to that, So when he goes, I know we're still jumping ahead. I will jump backwards. We'll go back more to like the Sept and Tywin's body being on display, because there is a couple of things that happen. There's a moment where he's talking to Pycelle, and Pycelle is just Pycelling.
Pycelle, this man so much. Like, he's grieving in a way that I'm almost like, were you in love with him? Like, was there like a feeling of romance happening?
I was reading this, and I'm going to be so honest with everyone listening. I did not know what to make of this. I couldn't tell if this was genuine or
it
if
feels
this
genuine
is
to me.
A performance. I couldn't call it. I'm not going to lie. I could not call it. But he is overcome with grief to the point where he has to like excuse himself. He's thought Tywin was the best man I ever knew. The best man that should have been king that was never king, something like that.
Yeah.
The man laying here is the greatest man I'll ever know. Oh, here it is. Lord Tywin wore no crown, yet he was all a king should be. I just didn't know if this was for show or if this was genuine, sincere grief. And I still don't know. You said you think it's real?
I really do. Because, so do you remember when Tyrion like shaved his beard and was accusing him of like conspiring against the House Land? But it was really, he was conspiring against Tyrion. And Tyrion took that as like disloyalty.
Mm-hmm.
But Pycelle seemed genuinely upset at the assertion that he was not being loyal to House Lannister. And he talked a lot about how everything he has ever done was for House Lannister. And there's like a moment later on when he's brought back on board and captured up from the Black Cells when Tywin returns. And like Tyrion is waiting for him to do something shady and he just doesn't. He's continuing to serve.
Mm-hmm.
There's a feeling for me of like a genuine, real loyalty to the house that is almost bordering on like he sees himself as one of the family. And has like a wish fulfillment thing about that, or at the very least respects Tywin so deeply that he saw himself going up against Tyrion as being pro Tywin.
Yeah. It also seems like he had a healthy fear of Tywin as well, because when Tyrion is accusing him of being a traitor to House Lannister, one of the things that Pycelle is talking about is I would never, and don't tell your father any of this. This is all like bullshit. Your father knows how much I love and respect and trust him and all that stuff.
But that could be as much about I don't want him to think that of me as it is about fear for himself.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it could be, easily be both.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's funny that Maybe I'm just so jaded.
I
I just was.
mean, it's hard because we saw Pycelle through Tyrion's eyes so much, and Tyrion had a lot of contempt for this guy.
You know
and
what?
I feel
That's
like it's
true.
easy to rub off.
That's true. You have to always. That's the other thing about these books that I have to remind myself of all the time, is I have to be mindful of whose POV I'm in when I'm getting information, when I'm getting facts, when I'm getting judgments on other characters. I have to always remember, well, who's talking right now, though.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point, because I saw Pycelle through Tyrion, primarily.
Yeah.
And that
everybody is unreliable narrators in some area. Like some are more trustworthy of their overall judgment than others, but everybody's got their like weird blind spots and prejudices.
This bit here too, when Jaime is like listening to Pycelle grieve, and he's just like, oh man, without that beard, it's a whole other thing. And it made me laugh, because that's a internet meme. Guys are always talking about like, what if you see her without her makeup on? But then the girls are like, have you ever seen that dude without a beard? It's a whole other thing happening under that face.
Yeah, I had a friend who posted a status a couple of years ago that stuck with me, which was, I don't want to hear any men commenting about how much makeup a woman wears while they use a beard to cover up from 0 to 7 chins. And I really appreciated the 0, because like that's what Owen always says, is that he wears a beard because he doesn't have a chin. And it makes it look like he has a chin, and it's like a really great tool, and he's never going beardless again. He has more of a chin than he thinks he does. But nevertheless, he's making a choice on that.
So yeah, this without his beard, Jaime says that shaving him was the cruelest thing that Tyrion could have ever done to him. Because and also that he's trying to regrow it, but that ship has sailed. So he's just walking around with like a couple of patches of wisps.
So
it's just pitiful.
I really felt for him on that. Like when you get old enough that your hair just kind of stops growing. That's a thing that I don't know how much I'm gonna have to deal with that. Probably not super much.
It's a thing. I don't know if it's in my future or not. I try not to think about anything that's in my future, quite frankly. Since we're all friends here, I feel like I can be honest with you. I really try very hard not to think about anything in the future. So he talks to Pycelle for a little bit, and then finally Pycelle has to excuse himself. And one of the last things Jaime thinks about him as he's leaving is just like, shit, this guy's dying too. Like he's also on his way out. And there's a whole thing that happens here about Long Waters.
Oh, you mean the head jailer? What is his title? It's not head jailer, because that was
he's the chief undergoaler. Is it Gaoler?
Jailer.
Is it jailer? That's how you pronounce that?
Jailer.
Why don't you just call it a jailer?
Listen, thank you. Okay. I didn't find out until I think I was recording this show with Brendan. That's how you're supposed to say that word. And I just want to know why the fuck we even do that. We all know how it's spelled now. And what's the point?
What is the point?
I don't get it. But they are considered very, very different types of words, evidently. Like Gaoler is meant to, you get a certain picture of the place that they run, versus a jailer, which feels more like almost an administrative kind of, you know what I mean? But I don't agree personally. I think that it's nonsense and we should just use the one word. They're both pronounced the exact same way. Why are there even two different? Why? So thank you, and I'm really glad that you also didn't know that, because I felt like a big old doofus.
So yeah, this guy, this runner for Long Waters, and we get like this whole thing about like his backstory, and it's like 2 times in 2 different chapters somebody is trying to convince someone else that they have like noble blood in them from generations ago.
Royal, not even just noble.
That's right, royal blood. That's right. So this guy Jaime says, yeah, I almost mistook you for Aegon the Conqueror. Jaime, why?
He's a fucking bitch sometimes. He really is. I want to mention that Austin's Info Corner, that apparently George R. R. Martin has come out and confirmed that Yennefer does indeed have royal blood, that this is not just like a bullshit story. It's true.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Yennefer.
Just for the fun of it, he was just like, no, yeah, that's a true story. Nobody believes him and nobody cares, but it is genuinely what happened. And evidently, there's more info on that, but I'm not going to share it because it has to do with a character that's going to be coming up on Fire and Blood. Ugh. House of the Dragon. I just will never, ever get that right the first time.
You really won't. Mm-hmm.
But the person playing a character involved is cast already.
Oh, fun.
So I don't want to maybe spoil a plot point for you, potentially.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, this particular gentleman, Old Longwaters, was more like to be descended from some minor household knight than from a princess, Jaime thought. And he's talking to this guy because he wants to know a little bit more about the missing jailer, this Rugen person who we know is Varys.
Yeah. And so is Jaime.
And he's talking to Jaime, and Jaime has to pretend, did not know anything about this guy and who he is and what he did. And this guy is giving his report. And every time this guy, because at one point the guy is saying something, and then he swears on the veracity of what he's saying. He swears on like his royal blood. I swear I'm telling you the truth. And Jaime is like nodding appreciatively, but inside thinking, if you bring that fucking royal blood up one more time, I swear to God, I swear to fucking God. And it's just,
this scene kept reminding me of with like Jaime investigating, but like knowing a lot of it already is McNulty.
Oh my God, with McNulty and the serial killers with the little red string.
Yep.
Yeah, it does feel like that. It does.
What a plot point that fucking was. Guys, watch The Wire if you haven't seen it already.
So then Jaime has to be like, all right, well, I want to question the two turnkeys. And the guy is like, you could, but I don't think they're going to answer you. Because they're dead.
He has to be all dramatic about it.
So dramatic. Question them, my lord. I surely did hear you, and yet, my lord, question who he pleases. He's true. It's not my place to say who he can and can't question. However, if I may be so bold.
Good God, get to the fucking point, sir.
It's like trying to take an ADHD test, too. They also told him he had anxiety.
I have anxiety because they cut my men down in front of my face.
All right, so, and this is what we talked about earlier, where Jaime's just like, how dare, who told you, who gave you the order, and we find out that, Cersei told the men that, make sure that they stay asleep. Jaime's all like, next time you come and fucking tell me first. And as all this is happening, again, this thing in his head, Kettle Black is talking to him, and all he can think is, she's been fucking Lancel and Osmond and Moonbay for all I care, all I know. And it's just like, just going again, just in circles in his brain.
I feel like you said Moonbay, and I really like it.
Oh, if only.
Moonbay. Not like a bay. I mean like BAE. Like it's somebody who's a bay once a month. It's like a werewolf. They turn into the hot one.
Oh, fuck.
That's what Stefan was.
Oh my God, is that an Urkel reference?
That's an Urkel reference. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Moonbay.
Then we have Jaime remembering his last interaction with Rhaegar Targaryen for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure how we get here. He's just sort of standing in the sept alone, kind of like just looking around himself, and
I think it's because he's thinking about how hard it is to stay awake. And the last time he was at vigil, he was so much younger. Is that not what?
Is that where we go? Like,
I think so. Because he's just like, man, this wasn't so hard the other time I did it.
Yeah, maybe that is what it is.
But it doesn't matter.
But
yeah, Rhaegar.
Yeah, he starts thinking about the last time he saw him and the last words that they had. And I also want to say that there's a moment where, as he's standing his vigil, he chastises himself as like, what a joke this whole thing is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is more absurd than a mummer's farce, me standing vigil for a father I helped to slay. Like, he's just really going through it.
Yeah.
He starts thinking about Brienne for some reason. Again, just super tired, I guess. His mind is just roaming.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, mad at her, stupid, stubborn, ugly wench. And then prays for her, basically. You know, calls her stupid, stubborn, ugly wench, and then like prays to the father to give her strength. He's just all over the place. He starts
That's
thinking
how he shows affection. Him just being like, you dumbass, ugly piece of shit. I love you so much, man.
He thinks for a moment that maybe he should just tell Cersei everything about the plot to free Tyrion.
Oh my God. On what planet, sir? Oh my God.
He says the truth works so splendidly with Tyrion after all. And then this is when he has the flashback the one time to Tyrion saying, I killed your vile son and now I'm off to kill your father too. Which isn't actually what he said, right?
No, it is not.
It is not what he said, but this is what Jaime hears, what he thinks.
Yeah.
And then the refrain, a lying whore, fucking Lancel and Osmond Kettle Black. He's also trying to tell himself, you can't fall asleep. You can't fall asleep. Yeah, this is the POV of a man who is in deep grief, has a tremendous amount of guilt, and needs a nap. So it is all really kind of all over the place.
Yeah, he does need a nap.
He really does. And then, to think about remembering his last, when he stood vigil, I guess, to be knighted or becoming, I'm not sure if it's when he becomes a Kingsguard or if he gets knighted, but they have him like kneel overnight, and then he wakes up. Not wakes up. Oh my God.
I appreciate your little pity laughs for my bad jokes. Friends. You're willing to just humor me. Nice.
Oh, and then this last memory, you know, so he, Arthur Dane, says with dawn, he tapped him on the shoulder. The pale blade was so sharp that even a light touch cut through the tunic, and he bled anew. A boy knelt, a knight rose, the young lion, not the Kingslayer. But that was long ago, and the boy was dead. So he's now thinking back to when he was, I guess, still pure of heart and noble and had not done any of his treacherous deeds, you know, that have ruined his reputation, even if we all understand that he kind of did with Aerys, especially the thing that needed to be done. It still ruined his reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like thinking back on a time when he was someone that people, when they said his name, there was no like snickering or like, you know, cutting remarks or backhanded things to be said, you know.
Yeah.
He was respected, I guess, really.
Yeah, and we when we're in Brienne's POV, we see like that is for fucking pervasive. Like he is persona non grata to this day. The minute his name is mentioned,
yeah,
that's very real.
So then Cersei comes to visit him, and she's in her little incognito get up so she can like sneak around town. And she shows up to beg him to be her hand because Kevin has said no. And
you just got done talking about what a bad idea it would have been, and now you're back again. You don't like. All she wants is somebody who she thinks is going to do what the fuck she wants them to do, and she's not thinking beyond that at all. And it's so annoying.
I love she shows up and she's all like do you remember when we used to meet like this back in the day? And he's just like, she wants something. And he says no about being the hand. Like, that's not going to happen.
I thought for a second you were saying he says no about remembering when they used to meet. Like,
Oh,
which would have been a really like cold-blooded move. Just like, no, I don't recall that. Sorry, that just didn't stick in my mind the way it stuck in your mind. I guess it wasn't really that important to me.
It meant nothing to me. And he ends up telling her that, well, one, there's a whole bit about when they talk about their children, and he says that you made them Roberts, which we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But she's begging him, like legit begging him. And he's just like, no, that is not for me. That's not what I was made to do. I'm not like a politician. And she then is like, well, you know what? If battlefields are what you want, I can make sure that that's what you get.
Which what does that mean?
I mean, I guess she's trying to say that she can make it so that everything that ever happens for him has to be a fight. Or she's literally means it like, I'll just make sure you get sent off somewhere. But he's not a soldier. He's a Kingsguard. So I don't understand how she can't, like, you know, draft him and like deploy him out to the battlefield. His whole jam is to be stationed to protect the king, right? So I took it to mean something a little bit more figurative, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna make everything a fight for you. Then every single thing you try to do is gonna have to be a fucking fight. But maybe she does mean it literally. It just didn't make much sense to me, given what he does, you know, and what his station is.
I'm thinking that there is one member of the Kingsguard who's like in Dorne right now. Because he's like watching over Myrcella.
Yeah, but Dorne is not like a battlefield. Like, they're not at
No,
war
I'm
Dorne
just
right
saying,
now.
like, even if you are Kingsguard, you can be sent to do stuff. It's just like you got to be sent to do stuff that's so tight within the royal family that what would that be?
Yeah, who else is there left for him to guard, you know?
Yeah.
There's Tommen is there, Cersei's there, Tywin's dead, Tyrion's on the run. Is it Myrcella or Myrcella?
Myrcella.
She
M-Y-R.
already has her Kingsguard where she is. So like, where else would you send him?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, he says he's not a politician, but then he gives her some really, really good advice.
Yeah, he does. He ends up telling her something which I feel like someone else has already said to her.
Have they? Ooh, I don't remember that.
I'm trying to think, because he ends up telling her to make is it Tyrell?
Mace Tyrell, yeah. Because he keeps pushing about being hand. Like he drops another hint in this section where he's just like, anything I can do to help.
Mm-hmm.
And when he says this, he's right in front of Jaime. So Jaime's like, oh, well, my sister would love it if you would meet her for dinner. And she's like, what the fuck? And he has to kind of talk her off the ledge because she's ready to bite his head off after Mace walks away.
Right.
And tells her, you have got to figure out something to do with him that's going to ease his ego. And he thinks he's a really good warrior.
Oh, it's Kevin. Her uncle gave her similar advice.
Did he?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, shit. Okay, I didn't remember that.
I think he gave her similar advice about who she should be naming his hand and why. But I love this too. After he leaves, she's just like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Who she should be naming his hand. Yeah, he does. I thought you meant about the plan to send Mace away.
Oh, no.
I got you.
So I'm sorry, I got confused now. I just lost my place trying to look for the other thing. But after Mace leaves and she asks him what, he's just like, you need Tyrell, but you don't need him here. So ask him to take storms in for Tommen. And that Mace considers himself like a really powerful soldier. Mm-hmm. So either he'll win it for you, which would be great, or he'll make a complete mess of it and make himself look foolish, which also great for you.
Yeah.
And that's when Cersei is just like, huh. Yeah. And then they gives him the compliment, I guess, is that for a moment you sounded quite like father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really do want to point out he has this idea of like it could look good for you, it could look bad for you, you would win either way. And then she's like, and also accidents happen on battlefields. He could meet an unfortunate end. And I'm like, how is it that he's giving you perfectly good political capital advice, and all you can hear is, oh, you're suggesting how to kill him. I get it. No, that's not what he's saying. Like, he gives her well, that is also a possibility to sort of mollify her, I feel, because he knows that's like all she fucking heard. But that's not what the suggestion was supposed to be about.
Right.
And it's just so telling that that's immediately where her stupid mind goes. Her extremely short-sighted mind.
And
I could kill him.
I'm sorry if you actually said it or not. I may have missed it. But when she says the thing about like, oh, and accidents happen, and Jaime's like, yeah, there's a chance of that. There's a risk.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, is he getting what she's saying about murdering him?
I think he is.
Okay.
And that he's just like, yeah, or that. And just sort of like, as long as she does the thing where she sends him away, I'm just going to let her, because interpret this however.
He says there is that risk, especially if his patience runs thin and he elects to storm the gate. So that feels like Jaime is saying, yeah, he might not make it back if he loses his patience and tries to like run headfirst into battle. He might not make it back.
So he's giving her advice on how to kill a guy.
I don't know.
Like,
I guess
to storm the gate like a dodo bird.
Yeah, I was like, is Jaime not picking up what she's putting down and really thinks she's worried about him possibly accidentally dying as opposed to her plotting his demise? Or is he playing along with her?
I think it's that.
And so, yeah. These two. I don't know what to make of them sometimes. And the way they talk to each other. And, sometimes it really feels like they're speaking a different language when they are talking to each other.
Yeah. I get what you mean. It's just their priorities are so different. It's really interesting that they I was going to say, I think that Cersei loved Jaime for real in her way for a time. I don't think that's there anymore. I think he really loved her though.
Mm.
I don't know. Maybe not, but there's a vibe to me of like, he saw her viciousness and whatnot, and that was like part of what he liked about her. Mm. And I'm not sure how much she has ever seen him except as a literal reflection of herself. Like she just feels so ego driven that the fact that he just looks a lot like her could be enough. Jack Donaghy situation.
What is that? I don't know.
You don't remember there being like a whole joke about like whether he would sleep with like if there turned out to be a clone of him or something like that?
Oh no.
I don't even remember the exact context of it, but he's talking about it with Liz and she's just like, what? Because he's acting like this is a fantasy everybody has. And she's like, I don't know how to tell you this, sir, but no, thank you.
All right, so then we go to Brienne's chapter, and like we said at the beginning, there's really not a lot that so much happens as far as moving the story forward. She has made it to Duskendale. She's concerned that she's been followed by one of the three men that she left behind, but it doesn't appear that they have done so. She's asking her same questions. There's a hysterical moment where she's asking some small folk about Sansa. She's giving them the young maid, 3 and 10, fair face, blah, 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 blah. And a dude is like, what's her name? And Brienne is like, shit, a name. I hadn't thought that far ahead.
Oh, Brienne.
And And the guy is like,
What an amazing spy craft.
No name? Well, the roads are full of nameless girls.
Yeah, and one of the women's like, yeah, graveyards too. Damn.
Even fuller. And then she gets inside, and she gets a room. Somebody's gonna repaint her shield for her because she's still carrying the one that Jaime gave her, and that does not have a great reputation. Somebody actually looks at it, and it's just like, ugh, one of those, huh? I know that sigil.
It's the woman who does the painting. Yeah, she's just like, I've heard bad stories about that place. Harrenhal, right?
Yeah, it's when she's trying to go in through the gate into Duskendale, and the guards at the gate are looking at the shield, and they're like, the Black Bat of Loston. Those are arms of ill repute. I love too that they stop her, and then they realize it's a woman, and they're like, "Oh no, she's fine. She can go through. We don't have to do any serious check. It's just a bitch on a horse. It's fine."
It's just a bitch on a horse.
She we get, I'm jumping around again, but again, it's not like a lot that happens in this chapter, but there's a wonderful bit where we get like some history of Dantos, which was unexpected because this is where he is from. And we find out about his house and what happened to them and how they all ended up being wiped out, which is a story Dantos told Sansa. But then we get to hear it from, I don't want to say the source, but we get to hear it like from people who, I guess, from that area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called the Great Defiance or the Defiance.
Yeah, the Defiance of Duskendale.
Yeah, and they actually took Aerys prisoner, which I mean, the balls.
Yeah,
the fucking balls. And like all of King's Landing comes to their fucking gate, but they can't do anything because they got like a knife at Aerys' throat, and it's basically like, try it. I dare you.
Yeah.
And then there's a rescue. I think it's Selmy that is part of it, or Barristan. Sir Barristan. Selmy's the same guy, right?
Yeah, that's the same dude,
right? And so he's in on the rescue. So some of that stuff was cool to read. Some of like that background stuff was cool.
But yeah, this is, I think Austen included the backstory on Dantos's, the fate of his family and like having to witness these horrific executions that happened. And that I think that Dantos was like forced to watch. This was all done in as horrific a way as possible to send a message. And the fact that he is now a terrible alcoholic, well, he was before he was
right
around, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And somebody with some trauma. TM.
And Dantos was a Hollard, which was like a secondary family. The main family were the Darklands, and those are the ones that really like conspired and plotted, and then the Hollards, I guess, supported them in that.
Right.
So when Tywin came a reckoning, all of the
I've heard it used like that, but I like it.
All the Darklands had to eat it, and there's a special mention of the wife the Lord at the time was Lord Dennis, and this person who's talking to Brienne is saying, even now they still love him, despite the fact that he had this idea to kidnap the king and brought this horror down on these families and on our town. And they blame it all on his wife, who happened to be foreign. She was Mirish, and they have call her the Lace Serpent, and basically just decided that she poisoned his mind. And so that when she's
vagina,
right? So when she's captured and killed, she is disfigured on top of just being killed and being burned alive. They they rip her tongue out, I think, and it just says tore out her tongue and her female parts, which is what they said had enslaved her lord in the first place. So basically, they all cried witch, and she throughout history is bearing the burden for this defiance. And this dude, this Lord Dennis, wasn't his fault.
Nope.
Wasn't his fault at all.
Nope.
And that's
Eve told him to eat the apple, and he trusted her.
Yep. A tale as old as time.
Yep. It is wild how quick people are to blame women.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, I wish that you guys, like, there should be a study done. I'm sure there has been.
Mm-hmm,
I want the data on it because, you know, it's like so clockwork.
Yep.
Set your watch by it.
Sure can. Men, and then the irony of this is that men, TM, are both held up as, like, you know, the pinnacle of rationality and judgment and logic.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, women can't lead because we're irrational and emotional and can't use logic, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we have enough power that we can just whisper in this man's ear and cause a great collapse. Like, which is it?
That's the same thing as being like slut shamey and like victim blamey. It's like, well, we're not going to acknowledge that we think all men are so this way that it's a woman's fault because it's a guarantee if she dresses a certain way that guys are going to act a certain way because they're all like that. We won't acknowledge that part of it, but we will hold her responsible. Like, she should know that, despite the fact that we are going to deny that part of, you know, it's just a wild thing that, like, the defense of why rape was fine is just, well, how could I help myself?
Yep.
And that's, like, been a legit argument that people have used and been given a pass. Like,
we are held responsible for mitigating their deficiencies, right?
Yep.
But they also won't take accountability for those deficiencies.
Yep.
Like, they'll be like, hey, you know, you can't trust us because, like, you wearing that short skirt. What were we supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
But if you say to them, your behavior when she was wearing that short skirt was inappropriate, they'll be like, what behavior? What are you talking about? I wasn't even thinking about that.
So you're really overreacting, and I resent the implication that I am untrustworthy or that any of my male friends who I would never let my little sister date because I know how they are.
This is the same type of dude that wears the t-shirt, right? Talking about what he'll do to the type of dude that who wants to date his daughter. Mm-hmm. But then he'll be the first one in the comments talking about not all men.
Yep.
But you're wearing the t-shirt though, bro. Like, which is it? Which is it? But anywho, that's a whole other podcast. How
many times per episode do we say those words?
We might need a new bingo card. So Brienne has a memory of some questioning she did around King's Landing before she left.
Yeah.
And we find out in this one that she has had an opportunity to talk to one of Sansa's like maids. And this is really sad too, because Brienne finds her working in a brothel. And it's because this woman had worked with Lord Renly before being assigned to Sansa. And by everyone else's estimations, they have both turned traitor. So now this woman can't find good work. No one will hire her because she's worked for two traitors. And that really sucks. And I just love that inclusion because so often this story takes place at such high levels of society that whenever we get little reminders about the rest of these people who are just trying to fucking live and how all these shenanigans impact their day to day, I always appreciate those little glimpses.
Well, that's like, I mean, the whole thing with those guys getting executed by the Kingsguard, when Jaime knows perfectly well this was none of their fault, and in fact he is the one responsible, but he is so far above reproach, and they got fucking killed for nothing. Like, that's the whole book. Is basically one person after another getting blamed for some shit. It's like the dude who what was it that like Arya tricks into letting her steal the horses by like holding out, or she does something to some guy. She steals the horses and he's doing a thing because she tells him Bruce sent her with this message. And
oh, right.
Then she steals the horses. And he was doing this because he was told that's what your lord wants you to do. But then when it turns out that was not true, this man was like probably tortured and killed for allowing his horses to be stolen.
Right.
Like everybody is screwed from the beginning, no matter what. It doesn't matter as long as the person you're talking to like doesn't see you as a person, which most of them don't.
They really don't. They don't. In these moments when they are interacting with, just regular people, like Brienne outside of Duskendale when she's just waiting to get in, and she's just in line with like farmers and everybody, and like nobody will talk to her. And she's like, well, shit, I guess I gotta talk first. And just again a reminder of like, why would they fucking talk to her? It has been fucking horrendous out in these, Westeros streets for a couple of years now, and you look like a knight on a horse, and y'all have been nothing but trouble. Every time I turn around, one of y'all shows up. Why would I talk to you?
Exactly.
You might as well just be a cop. I'm not talking to you.
So yeah, she's going around asking these questions, and eventually she comes across that maester, I think it is, who tells her the story. But he also tells her, like, when she asks, have you seen something? He's like, oh my God, how many goddamn times do I have to tell this story? And she's surprised, and he's like, do you really think you're the only one? Come on, be for real. This is like all I have done is talk to people about likely why they are not here and why would they be here, and the fact that neither of them has any connection to this place, and it's a bad choice to look here. You're wasting your time, you're wasting my time. I'm tired of it. I hear my ravens calling, so I better go. It's like he pretends to hear the phone ringing.
It kind of is. That's what I thought when I was reading. But yeah, the thing about the talking to the washer lady is that she is the one who tells Brienne about how Sansa spent so much time in the Godswoods when she was in King's Landing, and that she would go north because that's where her gods are. So Brienne, when she's on this in King's Landing trying to decide where the places she should be looking for Sansa are, she considers the north. She considers the wall because she knows that she has family that's supposed to still be there. And then she even thinks to herself, like, but if they went across the narrow sea, like, how would I even, how am I supposed to know where to go? And she thinks also of possible places Sansa could be. She comes down on the Erie, and she says it would be simpler, and Lysa would, most likely take her big sister's daughter. So I was just like, well, why aren't you heading there then? I feel like you have thought this all out, and you landed on the Erie as being like, a good idea. And this is all thoughts she had while she was in King's Landing. So I'm like, why are you in Duskendale then?
Is it on the way at all? I actually need to look at a map.
Let's look at the map.
Yeah. Because it might be that she's like working her way over there. But I don't actually, I'm so bad at the geography of this universe.
All right. So let's see, folks. My eyes are so bad.
I got my title page. Is there a map in the ebook? Oh, I think there isn't. Come on. Right. Oh, nope. There it is.
So the Vale is at the very bottom of the north map.
God, this friggin' map is so big.
Mine is so tiny. And then Duskendale is there's
this is riveting audio.
Oh, this is not good for the podcast. Sorry, guys. I really do. But I don't see Duskendale jumping out at me on the map. So I don't know if she's on the right track or not. If this is like on the way to where she's heading. But either way, for a split second, I was like, oh my God, yes. But then she doesn't go there, and I was like, oh, boo.
I'm gonna just like Google Duskendale and see if I can get a map with it pointed out, because this is gonna bother me, I feel like. Oh yeah, it's north of King's Landing, and it's like on the next. So I'm trying to see, because King's Landing is also not where I think it is. I think it's going to be a lot further south on this than it is. But there's King's Landing, and then if you continue up the coast, there's another like inlet, and that's where Duskendale is. So she has not gone very far at all in terms of, so she's heading in the generally right direction for the Vale. She is just having to talk to literally everybody on the way, so I guess it's going to be slow going.
There it is. I found it finally too.
Oh, okay, I sent you.
There's Rosby and Duskendale, and then the Vale of Arryn is just like north of them. But so she's making her way, I guess, in the right direction, but she doesn't have any idea that is, correct. And so, like we said last time we had a Brienne chapter, like she, Sansa could be anywhere. She's trying to narrow it down to the most likely destinations, but she has so little to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And this have you seen of Maid 13 and 10 fair of face with auburn hair is not getting her anywhere.
No.
And it's also being made clear, like her conversation with the Maester, is that there are a lot of people out here asking the same question.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I do want to point out too how absolutely everybody says, "Oh, she's not going to be a maid for much longer." Then,
oh my God, yeah, that's not great.
It's like absolutely every person. It's remarkable.
Yeah, that's I had actually chosen just to ignore that. Like, I'm just, just like, not engaging. Just not engaging. Going to the next line. He can't seem to help himself. I get that he is, and by he I mean Martin, is trying to remind us, how treacherous it is out here.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that Sansa is not just out here, right?
Yes.
So I don't know if you need to keep telling me that.
I think it's not even meant to be like for us. I think it's just meant to be like, this is exactly how people would like talk to her about it and be really kind of callous about what that feels like to her alleged sister hearing that. And also just in general, I'm making a rape joke. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so common. It's not even a joke. It's just a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. We also have this little boy that she bumps into and knocks off his horse. And she's just like, he looks so familiar. I cannot fucking place it. And that's like outside. And then she sees him a second time. And then at the end of the chapter, it turns out the big reveal is that this little boy that's been following her is Podrick.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been following her since King's Landing, basically.
He's so hurt.
He is devastated that he has been abandoned.
Yeah.
By Tyrion. I remember that they team up on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I do not remember if it happens this way, like by accident on the road, or how they run into each other. Don't remember.
I don't remember either, I'll be honest.
But I hadn't even thought about him. But then when this happens and she's like, he looks familiar. My brain was like, oh my God, that's right. She ends up with Podrick on the show, but again, wasn't sure if that was how it was going to be on the book, because I thought it could be some character I haven't met, and the show decided to use Pod because I already knew who he was, and that's
true. That happens a lot,
right? So I didn't know we were going to get a true Podrick reveal until it actually happens. But when she is like, "Oh, this kid looks familiar," I was like, "Oh, are we doing the thing? Are they going to do the thing? Are you about to get it like a buddy road show?" Because I really enjoyed that. And she's like, in the show, it was all about like her trying to teach him, because he became her squire, kind of low key.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
I really liked that, and I like the idea of her having a squire, because it just like seems like, even though I remember on the show her being sort of like reluctant and being very stern with him,
mm-hmm.
it feels right that someone like her and her values and what she thinks is important would then have someone that she was mentoring, you know, who also took those vows seriously and was striving. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
striving
seriously enough that in his view, the fact that Tyrion ran from a beheading but didn't take him with him is like a betrayal, which is just so precious. Oh baby, it wasn't about you. It's okay.
So she spends the night in this town. She gets her shield repainted, and she chooses she can't choose Tarth because she's got the reputation after Renly. So she's trying to be kind of low key, which is really hard for a woman of her size, dressed all in mail with a giant broadsword. It's really hard for her to stay low key, but she's trying. So she gets this thing painted on her shield that I did not recognize. She says that it's a memory from when she was a child.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's supposed to be significant to me as a reader. The description of it sounded really lovely, but it didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, it's not meant to be of significance within the context of what we have read here, but it's a bit of an Easter egg for people who are aware of other ancillary material because it's the coat of arms of Sir Duncan the Tall, who is the Tales of Duncan Egg.
Oh, people are always talking about that.
That's a fun little series that I do think that we should read eventually. And he was called Sir Duncan the Tall. He was a very big man. So that's probably where she gets her height from, is Sir Duncan the Tall.
Wait, her height? Is this an ancestor of hers?
Because it was in her father's armory. The shield that had the arms on it.
So she's getting... Oh, okay, I misunderstood. She got the picture from a shield that was in her father's armory.
Correct.
Got you. Okay, sorry, I was so confused. I thought it was a picture painted on her shield that was something of her father's armory. You know what I mean?
Oh, picture of his armory?
I thought it was just a beautiful picture of some part of where she grew up that was meaningful to her, So maybe it was the armory with a beautiful sky behind it, and maybe a gorgeous horse sitting outside or something like that, But it's actually a recreation of a shield that was hanging in the armory.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
wow.
Well, I didn't know that thing about Duncan Egg. I didn't know that was a connection to her. That's really fun to find out.
Yeah, that's I think why people get so into the family trees and stuff is that he has thought things through enough that you go to these little pockets and you're just oh, and that meant something. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which there's a feeling of gratification to being I might be the only person who figured this out, kind of thing.
So also she meets a person in the inn when she goes for food, and there's I think he's a brother. Is he a sparrow?
I think so. Yes. He's got the tonsure on his head. Yeah,
he's definitely, a member of some kind of religious something, like a monk or a brother or a beggar or something.
Yeah.
And he offers her his seat, and they end up talking. And she asked, have you seen? And he has not. And then they have I think she runs into him a second time.
I don't think so. I thought it was just this one place. Because she sits down and talks to him at length about she's looking for a fool, or a knight, and he mentions somebody who was wearing motley, and she's like, "Well, I don't think that he was wearing motley. I don't think he did that, but maybe he did, and just nobody said anything."
Gotcha. Okay.
She asks him to fill her in on that, and he explains that this guy was looking for a boat for him and 2 other people, which is the one thing that sort of gives her pause because it shouldn't be 3 people total.
Right. She starts wondering who else could be traveling with them, and then she even thinks for a second could it be Tyrion?
Yeah.
Could that be the third? And then he says something to her. He gets gets stuck in her head. He says that she says, "Did the fool find his ship?" And he says, "I can't say that later. I really can't say that." But later I heard another man boasting that he'd fooled a fool and had the gold to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, what does that mean? Fool the fool? What?
Yeah, that guy was like buying everybody drinks at the bar that night. So something definitely did happen.
And the guy doesn't know. He says, I can't really tell you what he was talking about, but I can tell you who it was that was talking. And it's some guy named, please forgive me, Nimble Dick.
Why must I forgive you?
I just went
that
to
was a perfectly reasonable, that was normal name.
I was apologizing in advance to the universe and just asking for no repercussions.
Boy, that dick surely was nimble.
Jeffy Nimble.
She said with satisfaction. But yeah, so she has to go track this guy down now.
That seems like what's happening next, right? That's got to be what's going on next. So she pays for this guy's food, which was like their deal, sort of. And he offers her a chance to tell her sad story, which I think is how she got talking about what she was looking for. And then he gives her like a little bit of a blessing. The maiden will keep you safe. The crone's going to light your way. And tells her that he has to be on his way back to King's Landing. And when she asks if he has a horse or a mule, he says, I have 2 mules. And then he points to his feet. I don't know who this little man is, but I really enjoyed him.
Yeah, he was really fun. And I just really like his story is that basically everybody in his order was murdered.
Yeah.
And he hid inside a hollow tree because he's small, so he was able to hide. And then he had to fucking bury everybody and just go off on his own and like find a place, in the world. And good God, the number of people who are displaced in this story,
Does he tell us, like, they're traveling down the road? Does he say who killed them? Is it the fucking Brave Companions? No, or the...
I'm not sure if he says.
He says the wolf. He said, I don't know, but the wolves burned us out. We rebuilt as best we could until some sellswords came. Could not say whose men they were. Took our pigs and killed our brothers. All right, so he doesn't tell us who he was. He just says they're sellswords. And
the wolves burned us out. So it's fucking northerners who did the initial damage.
Mm-hmm.
Womp womp.
And then as they're trying to rebuild, some other motherfuckers come. And then he ends up, not only does he bury everybody himself, but he ends up like digging up some coins that had been stashed away by some of his other brothers. Yeah. So that he has like a little bit of money in his pocket. And he says, I met some other brothers going to King's Landing. That's her telling it to him. And he says, yeah, everybody is going. Which I think is really interesting. This is the second or third time now that it's been mentioned that all these people, especially these religious people, are making their way towards King's Landing.
Yeah.
But for why, though? Is it just that things are such a mess out in the world that people are like going because there's nowhere else to be? Is it the Septon that's in power now? Like, I don't know if the Septon that's in power in this book right now is the same guy from the show that was like so fucking rigid and devout that he ended up like Lancel ends up, because we already know Lancel seems like, you know what I mean? So I don't know if this guy that's in charge now in the book is the same as the character from the show, but if it is, has he sent out some kind of call to all the religious and devout to come to King's Landing? Because that's what it feels like. It feels like everybody is making a pilgrimage to King's Landing, like they're being called. But it's so weird because no one else seems to be aware of it. Like everybody else is just like, weird. All these people are going to King's Landing, So I'm really fascinated in if a call has gone out, like what network is it traveling? Oh
yeah, that's interesting.
It doesn't seem to be common knowledge. Like, I expect Brienne to be like, she's like, I met some other brothers going to King's Landing. And that's all she says. Instead of being like, oh, yeah, I heard that there's going to be a big meeting. You know what I mean?
There's going to be a con.
Like some sort of acknowledgement of, yes, I have been made aware that you are all being summoned to King's Landing. Like, it doesn't have any of that kind of energy. It's just really like, what a coincidence. I met some of you guys on the road going to King's Landing, too. How peculiar.
Yeah, only the insiders get to hear about SparrowCon.
You
got to be a member.
Mm-hmm. So then we have a bit where she's at the inn, and this is when she starts overhearing people talking about what's going on in the world. And talk goes to King's Landing, and they talk about Tommen being king, and wondering who's really going to be running shit until he's of age, because he's quite young.
Mm-hmm.
And one guy is like, it's going to be Kevin. And then another guy is like, well, maybe to be Tyrell or maybe the Kingslayer. And the minute the Kingslayer comes out, people are like, no, absolutely not. Not that oath-breaking motherfucker.
Yeah, she gets upset.
She has to leave. She doesn't like start a beef or nothing, but she just like puts her food down and like walks away.
Yeah.
And then we have her in her little room. She is dreaming about killing Renly, but it turns into Jaime.
Mm-hmm. What was that for?
It was just poor Brienne and all of these, like she's falling in love with Jaime, but it doesn't seem like she doesn't seem to like be aware that that's what's happening to her just yet. And that's why Renly and Jaime is getting all like mixed up in her brain. Poor thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a part where she's taking a bath and she's thinking about how he got into the bath with her.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He was half
blushing.
A corpse and half a god.
Yeah. She's got it bad. She's got it bad. Anything else here in these chapters? I know there's a couple of other things that are important. But we just did so much jumping around. I have literally lost my place.
Yeah, I'm not like, because I haven't been following along. I've just been talking about the things that stood out to me that I remember. And I feel like that we pretty much like got all of the important stuff.
Yeah. There's again, just a lot of Brienne, reminding herself of what she's doing. She's thinking about Catelyn, the promises that she's made and how she's like failing, but she's committed. She remembers what Catelyn said about her children when she finds out that the Bran and when she is told that the boys are dead, which we know is not really true, but and then she speaks of how she felt about all her children. And then the last major thing is she bumps into this little boy again, and then she's on the road, and then it starts to rain, and she dips into sort of the ruins of some castle that used to be here. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Hollard Castle that she finds like shelter in from the rain. And
you know what? Sorry, but when she's thinking about like this is, she thinks it might be the Mad Mouse guy. You can just see that it's like somebody small.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this brings to mind a memory of whooping the ass of the man who was supposed to be her future husband. That's
right. That's a very good one. I'm glad you remembered that. Yeah.
That is so good.
And the reveal that it was the third time it happened too.
Yep.
Like, she's getting betrothed to this like old man who is like, when you're my wife, you're going to put all that boy shit away and be a proper lady. And she's like, I don't got to listen to nobody that can't take me in a fight. Which I love that energy. That's also how I live my life. And so they fight with like what does she call, like the practice swords or 20 swords or whatever.
Yeah.
And she fucking breaks his collarbone, a couple ribs. You know what I'm saying? She puts this man down.
Yeah, she does.
And in the end, she's just like, the way it's written is so wonderful. I broke his collarbone, 3 ribs, and our fucking, what do you call it when you're supposed to get married to somebody?
And our betrothal.
There you go. She's like, yes. I broke all 3 of those things.
It was the third time, and her father did not try again.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. I'm glad you remembered to bring that up because that was wonderful.
I appreciate too, like her just being like, I don't even know where I got the courage to say that from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And when she takes down Pod and he's like stumbling over his words and stuttering really bad, she remembers a moment where she was like supposed to just say a very simple thing to greet somebody, and she couldn't get the words out, and she has a lot of sympathy for him in that moment, which I appreciate. It's such a small thing to like, you know, feel a kinship over, and that she does.
There's at the very beginning of her chapter when she's outside of the gates trying to get into town waiting for them to be open, and she's talking about what she's thinking, how nobody is talking to me. And she's like, I have to talk first. And then she has the memory of like how difficult it was for her when she was a child and how shy she's always been and how hard it's been to like initiate conversation with strangers. And I really appreciated that being included because it reminds us of how difficult it is. That like her whole thing now is like being on the road, having to talk to strangers to try to get this information, and just how deeply uncomfortable she is in that role. But here she is forcing herself to do it anyway. And then we have this bit at the end with Pod where it sort of like circles right back around to the way it began. And I really just like the chapter ended kind of, you know, with the same sort of kind of thing as it begins with her remembering like just how difficult it was for her.
Yeah.
And when she tells him this road is too dangerous for a boy, and he's like, but not for a squire though, which is just also like her energy, you know?
Yeah.
So this road is not safe for a woman if someone said, you know, when they say that to her, except he does not have the backup like she does. Like
he doesn't.
He cannot back it up. And he says that when he says I was the hand squire, and she's like Tywin, and he says no, the one before that, his son. I fought with him in battle. I'm the one that shouted half man, like he's so proud of that.
The whole way that he relates this to her is so convoluted and weird. I do like too, like she thinks to herself, I think he's 10. I don't know how old kids are.
She's
I'm
like
bad
me.
at that part.
I felt so good when she says that.
I appreciate that too. I'm like, people are like, oh yeah, my kid's so and so age, and I'll be like, oh, so they're in 5th grade, and they're like, they're a junior in high school, and I'm like, oh.
She says, she always thought kids were younger than they were because she had always been big for her age.
Yeah. So they are, I was going to say reunited, but she has never been quite united.
Yeah, they've never really been united. And when when she asks, why are you stalking me? What do you want? And he says, I want to find her. I want to find his lady. And you're looking for her. But it doesn't say, he doesn't explain why he's looking for her.
No.
You know, just that he's his squire, but he left me. So really, he wants answers, I think, from Sansa.
Yeah.
Maybe like, where did he go? Because ultimately he's looking for Tyrion, I think.
Yeah.
But he's doesn't say that. He says, he's looking for Sansa, not on the road looking for Tyrion. So I guess maybe he thinks that is his best bet. He thinks that Sansa might know something. Maybe it's safer to be on the road looking for her than it is to be on the road looking for him. You know, I don't know.
Interesting. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like, when Tyrion is arrested and Pod is just kind of left on his own, he is never, to our knowledge, questioned or anything about what happened. He's never like, it's never like, we're going to haul you in because you're his squire. Like that, nothing happens to him, right? He's completely,
that's true.
Like, at best I can tell, forgotten about, or just not considered,
or taken not seriously at all.
Something, which, I mean, how do you not question everybody in his household, in Tyrion's employ, if you think he was like scheming? But it appears that Pod is just like in the wind.
Yeah, there's a scene where Pod comes to see Tyrion when he's locked up to run errands for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyrion asks, do you think I did it? And Pod is like real weird and doesn't ever actually answer. And Tyrion just takes that as an answer that Pod does think he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering now if that was the case. Like, if he did think so, would he be looking for him? Would he be this heartbroken about being left? Or is it just kind of like, yeah, he did it, but I'm still loyal to the guy because I said I was going to be, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. When he doesn't answer Tyrion, I think I might have originally thought that, one, Pod is so bad at expressing himself.
That's true.
You know, he gets so like tongue-tied and flustered. And to be asked something like that would require, like, you would think, oh, he would just be able to say, no, I don't think he did it. But I feel like what he wanted to say in that moment was actually much more complicated.
Yeah.
Not only that, like, it doesn't matter whether I think you did it or not. If that's the case, you know, my loyalty to you, I can't believe you would think that was in question. Or it could be, I can't believe you think that I would think you were capable of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be like a lot of different things. And he's just so bad at expressing himself and so awkward that I just assumed that the weirdness was just his inability to express himself, and just it just made it awkward because that's what Pod does. He makes shit awkward. It's kind of his jam.
That's true.
You know? And doesn't Tyrion, when he comes to visit him, doesn't Tyrion like tell him to like get away, leave this place, like, you know, forget that you were ever my squire, or something along those lines? Does he,
I don't remember that.
Give him a dismissal of some sort?
It's certainly possible.
Like a sort of a save yourself kind of, you know, kind of thing.
Get off the sinking ship. Yeah.
I don't remember if that actually happened, but or it could be something that was on the show. But it feels something like Tyrion was kind of like, I'm not going anywhere, dude. You don't want to hit yourself to my wagon. You want to get out of here. Because then what that means is that Pod never actually went anywhere and was just in King's Landing, and then finds out that Tyrion has escaped. And it's just like, well, what the fuck now?
Yeah.
You know? Mm.
Well,
yeah.
I don't have any new patrons to say hi to this week, by the way. So everybody listening, I hope that you're all very sad that you don't get to hear any air horn.
No week. Air horn.
No, not happening. Tragic. I have to get, because, you know, I have been excited about the soundboard in Zencastr. Now Zencastr feels kaput. There's no soundboard in Crowdcast, sadly. I need to get one for my phone. And
we never took full advantage of that soundboard in Zencastr.
Well, we recorded live so much
that
it was like you can't hear it on the live. So you and I would be cackling, and the people in the audience would have no idea what the hell I was doing.
That's true.
So I just didn't use it. And for this one, I could have, since we didn't do this live. But there's so much to talk about that I didn't have that part in my head. It was getting through the material, you know?
Right. So,
but Austin requested a sound of like a raven as his Austin's Info Corner. Instead of me doing that I just did, to have it be like something actually appropriate to the show, like a raven, which I resent easily, but
we got Austin sent a raven. Is that what we're doing?
Something like that, yeah, you know. Oh, my raven's calling. Hold on. Oh, it's from Austin. That'll be the bit I do every time. Ow, he pecked me. Rude. Maybe I could do a little. Yeah, there you go. I like it. Yeah, you do the crow voice and have it be very human sounding, like you just did. In that show One Piece that I cover for Spoil Me, they'll have animals, but it's just like when the dog is barking, it's literally a person's voice going bark, bark, bark.
Oh my God.
And it's so unnerving. I don't know what it is. Oh God, that shit. There's a part where like a phone is ringing and they just ring, 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 ring. Like, it's not a ring sound effect. It's somebody saying ring. And I don't know why, but I love that. I love the flavor of that show.
Oh, it's like fucking Roy Kent. Whistle! Whistle!
Exactly. All right. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this one up?
No, ma'am. Looking forward to the next 2 chapters. Wondering who we're going to get because I did not peek, so I don't know. I don't know who's coming up next.
Whoop, whoop. All right. Well, everybody, we love you so much. We appreciate you.
We do.
Come support the show at patreon.com/unspoiled. Get lots of stuff for it. You'll see. And there's a postcard winging its way to everybody right now about fancy chairs. So that'll be fun. And then Rashawn and I are about to record an Unsober episode for High Rollers about parties. And it's going to be in an hour and a half from now because we talked for 3 hours before we started because we are dodos who do not learn.
We don't learn. Every week.
We just don't.
We lament the same fucking thing every week. And then we do it every week. Oh, well. What can you do?
It's because we love the job.
Yeah.
Cheerio, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.